I'm Sarina Fazan. Taking a risk, making a difference, and changing the course of your life. Remarkable stories from people defying the odds. You're listening to Trailblazer. Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Sarina Fazan. Welcome to the podcast Trailblazer, where you hear from remarkable people and their remarkable stories. And I'm here with Michael Hettrich. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, did I get your name right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, wait. But tell me what you were going to call my last name.
Sarina Fazan. Yeah.
So I want the world to know it is thanks to Michael that I am able to broadcast in this beautiful, beautiful building, Ampersand Cooperative in Tampa, Florida. And he owns the building along with a partner and actually is allowing me to broadcast from this amazing space. So thank you. Oh my gosh. So Michael, the building is amazing.
Oh, thanks.
But I want to hear about your background first, because you have some great advice for people who have dreams, who have aspirations, have their own business. Tell us about you first. Tell us about your background.
So I'm an art school kid, so I'm an artist, and I was a carpenter forever. So I started doing carpentry in Philadelphia, and then I built my business in Philly. I sold it in '95. Moved to Chicago in '96, started small in Chicago again, and we grew to 165 employees in Chicago, and we did about $60 million a year in annual volume.
Wow.
We built stores and restaurants and car dealerships and designed a bunch of them too. And then I met my partner, Phil, and his family's been in commercial real estate. I met him because we were building in some of his buildings on Oak Street. They have a really impressive portfolio in Chicago. And he helped me buy my first commercial property in Chicago. And from that, I just started focusing more on commercial real estate and less on construction. So.
But let's go back to when you were starting out in carpentry. You said in Philadelphia. How old were you at the time?
Oh, I started when I was 13. I started, my brother would work at Kmart, and he would get minimum wage, and I was getting $4 an hour cash.
Okay, so, and you were doing that how? By building things?
Yeah, so my parents had a house that we put an apartment on for my grandmother, and she passed away, and they rented it to a guy that was when I was 10. So, they rented it to a guy that was just starting a cabinet making business, but his business hadn't taken off, so he would do roofs and additions and crazy stuff. So I used to grade basements and rake shingles out of bushes, and then I learned how to do cabinet making through him, and.
So at 10 years old, do you think that you knew at that time that you wanted to be your own boss and not work for somebody else?
I've done so many entrepreneurial things throughout from when I was a kid. We used to drive around our neighborhood, and people that were throwing bikes out, we'd strip the bikes, and then we'd recondition the parts and sell parts. My brother and I used to BMX race, so we'd sell the parts at BMX rallies. We'd wrap them. We'd always wrap them in newspaper and tape them and label them chain or handlebars or something. Yeah. So, and then through construction. Construction's kind of, I think it's a segue. A lot of people think, I'm just going to do this for a little while I'm going to college, or I'm going to do it summers or something. But I love it. I just love building stuff.
And it morphed into a huge business for you. And
by accident, yeah.
But I want to hear that, because one of the questions, to me, I feel like I was forced into entrepreneurship a little bit. When I say forced into it, I've always worked for somebody. But then, I started freelancing, and this happened, and it snowballed. So I don't know if I was born to be an entrepreneur. I am an entrepreneur now, but with you, it sounds like this is the path that you were meant to be on, and it's a great one. Okay, so at 10 years old, you're doing all these projects, but you did end up going to college as well, right?
Yeah, I went to college so during high school, I went to part-time, I went to high school, and then part-time I went to an art high school. So it was away from my high school. So I'd only have 3 periods. I had my prerequisite classes that I finished in junior year. So I was really finished with high school in junior year. And then still went to this art high school. One of my teachers at this art high school got me a scholarship through high school. So every summer I'd go to Moore College of Art in Philadelphia, which was an all girls school at the time, but now it's co-ed. But summer sessions at Moore were co-ed, and so I got to work with some illustrators and some really, one of my professors, her name was Sari. She was a really prolific illustrator in Manhattan for, the New York Times. She would do a lot of really cool stuff. So, and then when I graduated high school, I got a scholarship to go to school in Manhattan, and then I couldn't afford to live in Manhattan, so I moved back to Philly and went to school in Philly. But I never finished college. I left. And my parents were pissed.
They were.
Yeah. Well, my friends would graduate making $26,000 a year with an architectural degree, and I would make that Christmas break or summer, just doing construction.
So you always knew, and I go back to that question, that this is what you were meant to do.
Well, so my dad's father was entrepreneurial, and my dad tried to be entrepreneurial, but it just never worked out. But my dad's father owned gas stations and soda fountains back in the 50s and junk stores and lots of weird stuff. And my dad tried doing that with my uncle, and never worked out. We had 6 kids, so he's like, just go get a job. So
help support the kids, put food on the table. So at this point, then you're thinking, as you mentioned, your friends graduate from architectural school, they're making $26,000 a year, but you're making that, over a break, over a holiday break. Yeah. So how did you start though? Did you use some of that money to help buy your first real estate, or how do people do it?
So my partner Phil, he's just been a godsend. He's for all his faults, he's my best friend. But I was doing commercial construction, like building car dealerships and stores when I met him, and he said, "Why don't you own any real estate other than your house?" And I was like, not everybody can go buy a $5 million piece of property, And he's like, "Well, I'll help you. Let's look at buildings." So we would drive around Chicago. I'd drop my kids off at school. I'd go pick him up. We'd drive around and look at buildings like this. And it's kind of how we got this one. And he found one, and we talked to the guy, and he's got a really good head for real estate and kind of predicting trends. Not so much trends, but predicting real estate markets.
Right, because this building is truly a gem. I mean, I want people to actually, I need to take video of the building to show people, because the building is a gem.
Yeah, it's just like, this is what we bought in Chicago. We don't have our company, we don't really have a strategy when it comes to purchasing real estate or what our sweet spot is, and we don't have an exit, we don't finance things really. So we just sort of get a feel for something. It's, I have friends that have been struggling in real estate their whole careers, that don't do as well as we do on one property, so it's not like, there's no manual that you can, I took a CCIM course, which is a Certified Commercial Investment Manager. When I started doing commercial real estate, I'm a voracious reader, and I just need to learn. If there's something I'm interested in, I immerse myself in that. So I buy books and I, watch podcasts. Honest to God, I really do. Yeah. So I thought, what? The CCIM course teaches you how to do what they call cap stacks, how to evaluate deals, and how to make sure that it's a viable deal, how to position it for financing. So, but I spent $10,000 on that course, and nothing in that course was something that I didn't already learn from Phil, just from doing it, and I think that's kind of like that is a really good
lesson to people, I think. Yeah. It's like, you have to do it. I know that's why I always tell people, intern if you can in the profession that you want to do because it's hands-on training.
Yeah.
So you take this $10,000 course and you're thinking, oh gosh, this course is going to be great, but it was really your friend Phil on the hands-on training that
his father had invested heavily in real estate, so he learned from him. But there's just that thing about some people. Some people have it and some people don't. I think both Phil and I we both have it. Like
clearly, yes.
I mean, we just we find deals. And I was just talking before I came in. I was on a conference call with a investor out of Chicago, and he's like, how do you find, because I was telling him about these deals that we bought in Bradenton. He's like, how do you find these deals? And I said, just beat the pavement and you talk to people. Like, I talk to everybody.
Great.
And you just find out, like, we bought the deals in Bradenton because my friend I met this guy that owns a donut shop. And he's just a really nice dude that owns this donut shop. And I'm like, he goes, you should buy my building. So I was like, is it for sale? And he's like, no, but my landlord would sell it. So I started negotiating with his landlord, and it wasn't a realistic deal for us. And then he goes, my friend knows the guy that owns that building across the street that's vacant. So we ended up buying the whole one side of the block and doubled our money the day that we bought it. So
I guess you just never know who you're talking to, who can lead you to that path.
Yeah.
Like, so even if something is not for sale per se, it could be.
Most of our deals are not for sale.
Wow.
I'd say probably 75-80% of our deals are
not for sale.
It's just from the relationships that you have. You hear about somebody going to, the transmission store that we bought, her husband was dying of liver cancer, and we were like, that's going to be for sale, and it's an old filling station from the 50s. It's so cool, and they've had this transmission store since like the late 80s, and so it's ripe for redevelopment, and that's kind of what our sweet spot is value add properties. Is we kind of see the diamond in the rough, and then we polish it a little bit,
But Michael, how did you get to, like, for people who are watching and listening, how do you get to the point though that you can even afford the properties? You know what I mean? Like because you've got to start somewhere. And I know you said you came from very humble beginnings. Your parents have 6 kids. They're trying to put food on the table for 6 kids. So it's not like you have this huge pocket of money, right?
Yeah.
So how do you get to that point?
Well, interestingly, when I was 19, I took out a $1.3 million construction loan. This is back in the 80s when they were giving away money. Like, all you had to do was be able to spell your name or say it. My mom was like flabbergasted by it because I took out this loan to build 5 townhouses in the art museum area.
And you're only 19.
Yeah, I was 19.
And so you, oh my gosh, and you took out a loan for 1.3.
Yeah, so my mom was wondering, she's like, how did you get that much money? Like, did you forge our name? Did you sign our name to something? I was like, no, I had a plan. I worked with this architect who developed a plan. And so one thing that Phil and I differ is I don't put a value on money at all. Like, I don't think that I love making it. I love to have it, but it doesn't, like, money comes and goes. People get so hung up on the profitability of something, or I think if you build, like this building's been a real challenge for us with the city of Tampa, and it's not profitable, and it hasn't been for 2 years, because of some of the things that they've done and some of the things probably we've done, but when you believe in something, if you know that eventually you're going to overcome these hurdles, the money comes, and then this is on autopilot, and it's in the back burner. And then when we start getting money from it, we're going to be like, oh yeah, remember that building that we bought? And look at all this money that we have coming in. Like, so I think being able to buy the properties is just being a fearless, like, a lot of people talk the talk, but a lot of people don't walk the walk. You have to just, if you're like, yeah, I'm going to risk, I'm going to do this, you can't mitigate your risk. You have to be all in. You have to be all in all the time. So, like, my partner, I always refer to Phil, but he has this palatial estate in St. Petersburg, and he always hosts these fundraisers and parties and podcasts if you want. It's beautiful. So I was at this Texas Hold'em tournament. I'm not sporty spice. Like, I don't know card games. I'm not like, I don't fix my own cars or anything. So I was like, yeah, I'll come to this party, and it was there was probably 100 people playing in this tournament, maybe 150, and I got to the very end of this tournament. So it was me and this other guy, and this other guy won. But at the end of the tournament, he's like, "God, I just couldn't figure you out. Like I didn't know." Like, and I go, "This is the first time I've ever played Texas Hold'em." He's like, "I just could not figure you out. Like every time you were all in," and I'm like, "That's just me." Like,
so I think the message really is you have to be all in.
Yeah.
You've got to be, no matter, whether it's real estate
Yep.
or, journalism or whatever your industry is.
Yeah.
So then at 19, when you're all in, clearly it paid off.
Well, it didn't. That one went a little south. That got taken back by the RTC.
But that's, honestly, I mean, not that it's good that it didn't take off, but it shows that you do this investment for 1.3 and it did not go the way that you had planned. Tell us about that.
Well, I'm just tenacious. Like I am. So if I put my mind to something, I know I can do it. I could fail 20 times, 30 times, 100 times. You could just keep failing. But every failure you have to learn from and implement a different system that'll keep you from not making that same mistake. So that's kind of what I've done. I went through a 5-year-long bankruptcy in Chicago when the market crashed because I'm just a lucky carpenter. Like I'm not some real estate guru, even though I have that CCIM moniker at the end of my name. It's just, I thought, you get these commercial buildings, you under leverage them, they're cash flowing. Like when the downturn hit, a lot of banks, which I can't believe more banks weren't sued or weren't examined further, but because a lot of banks did some really shady stuff to protect their own assets. So I'm always super loyal. I'm loyal to my friends, my girlfriends or my business partners, and my relationships with my bankers, my subcontractors. I don't think I don't have 20 AC guys that I shop prices to.
Okay.
I have one AC guy that I know will come and do the job, and he's honest, and so I don't care if he's 10% higher or 30% higher. Like there's a relationship and there's knowledge that this guy's going to have the same respect for me that I have for him.
So loyalty and relationships are extremely important.
That's the whole thing. And that saying, like, it's not what you know, it's who you know. That's 100%. Like, couldn't be more true. So when in Chicago, when I was doing this, when the economic downturn hit, I had all my loans with one bank.
Wow.
All of them, just because I could call the dude and be like, "Hey, I need a loan for this building." No problem.
Right. Your relationship was very strong.
You don't have a stack of papers to sign. You go in and you sign a couple things and you're done. And so when the downturn hit, they basically, and we would buy a building like this. Let's just say for round numbers, we bought it for $100,000. I put $100,000 into it, and the bank would then come and they'd say, "Oh, it's worth $500,000. We'll give you $400,000 in a loan." And then I would take that 400 and I'd buy another building with it. That was kind of my MO. Well, when the downturn hit, everybody reevaluated how much money they lent on real estate, and all of a sudden, all these buildings that I had what they called over advances on them. So they're like, you have a $2.7 million over advance on this building, so we're going to need you to pay that down first, and then we'll refinance your property.
Weren't you in such a state of panic at this point?
I was, because my partner has a trust. My partner's got this, I call it his huge safety net. Like he has a safety net, and then like this giant bouncy house underneath it, and then a ball pit and a down comforter. Like,
that's a safety net.
Yeah, that's a super safety net. So like when I would go to him for advice, his advice was right, but it was just kind of like the advice of somebody that really doesn't care whether they make or lose money. Not that he doesn't care whether he makes or loses money.
Right, but he has this huge safety net that he can rely on.
Yeah, I mean, our payroll was, $80,000 a week at the time. Our health insurance was $40,000 a month for our company.
So you have a lot of people relying on you as well.
Yeah. So his advice was, stop paying everything. Stop paying everything. I go, what do you mean everything? He's like, your guys, your insurance, stop paying everything and conserve your cash. Well, I never thought that, I guess nobody really thought that the downturn would be what it was. But
Mhm.
so I'm super optimistic. I think that's another key.
Okay, optimism, like stay optimistic.
Yeah, optimism peppered with a little realism,
Okay.
but happy all the like I'm the happiest dude on the planet, and I just I get sued and I get people that screw me out of money and I get the city of Tampa. I'm like I have a lot of headaches that should make me a more jade. I should be chiseled completely out of a piece of jade, but I'm not.
But you're always smiling, and you're always
always.
So no matter what is going on with you, and you have a lot of stress and responsibility of paying a lot of people, you're saying that try to stay positive.
Well, keep your eye on the prize. So, like, money's not worth it. Your health isn't worth it. If you have stressors in your life, you try to. So, my friend told me once, because I'm going through a divorce, and I was married for 25 years, and my wife's always been this type of she's always been this negative influence on my life. Like, no matter what, no matter if I was successful or whether I made a mistake, I had a little stutter step, she would hyper focus on all that stuff. So my friend told me, he's like, well, it's the difference between girls and guys. Guys are waffles and girls are pancakes. You ever hear that?
No, I have not.
Okay.
This is the first
I'm about to enlighten everybody.
Yes, you are.
So guys, I think, and I think I'm not trying to be sexist at all, but I think a lot of guys that I deal with have an ability to compartmentalize. So like as a waffle, if you pour syrup on a waffle, it goes into each one of the little squares, right?
Right. That actually really does make
right?
sense. Yeah.
Girls let the little drip of syrup affects the whole pancake.
You know what? You know what though? You are so right about that because
right?
I've got to agree.
And my ex used to tell me all the time. She's like, I don't know how you deal with all the stress, and sleep, because she would never sleep. She'd be up all night and just stressed out, And I wish I could lose weight with stress. I wish that was a byproduct of my stress, but it's not. I just eat more ice cream. But I think if you stay positive and you focus on your goals and you don't let people deter you from your goals, you don't let people tell you, the only person I take advice from is my partner Phil, because I admire where he's gotten in his life. I don't emulate, I emulate his success, but I don't necessarily follow the way he got there, because he cares about money. And he cares about every single cent that we spend all the time. Whereas I'm just like, the parking lot cost $150,000 to pave it. He's like, what? What's it? We got 5 bids. I don't know.
Right.
What does a parking lot cost? So, but he's the person that I listen to the most, just because I respect where he's gotten in life, and I know we have the exact same struggle, just I'm a microcosm of his struggles. He's constantly got people that are, that count on him to make the right decisions. His whole family, basically. He's got 3 siblings, and when his father passed away, it was Phil who really made strides in real estate, really took chances and bought properties that the family kicked and screamed about. So,
do you think it is important then to have a mentor, no matter who that person is?
I think if you're
for you, do you think it's important?
I mean, so I always like to think that I'm a self-made person, but I think that your interactions in your entire life make you what you are. So whether they're negative or positive, you take that influence and digest it the way you want. So my daughter, for instance, got.
And how old are your kids? You have 2, you said, right?
Yeah, my daughter's about to turn 21, and I have a 19-year-old.
Oh.
So my 21-year-old is in med school to become a veterinarian. So she goes to school in Tampa. When she was 10, she got bit in the face by a dog.
Ooh.
And it was really bad. She had 300 stitches, 2 surgeries. Goodness. Yeah, and she has a scar on her face, and she's a beautiful girl, and she's smart as a whip, and we accelerated her high school, so she is 21 and in her 2nd year of med school. She's finished college, so which I'm so proud of her. But that dog bite, whereas I look at Bethany Hamilton, the girl that got her arm bitten off by the shark.
Mm-hmm.
She's out there every day surfing, every day.
Yeah.
It's freaking incredible. Where my daughter is like kind of, she doesn't dwell on it, but she lets it affect a lot of her life, that incident.
It's interesting, too, that she wants to become
Oh,
a
yeah.
veterinarian.
Yeah, she, on our way to the hospital, I'm holding part of her face on with a towel, and I'm yelling at the guy whose dog it was. I'm like, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to have your dog killed. And she's like, she's crying. She's like, it's not the dog's fault. He just got excited. She's never had a fear of animals ever, which is, yeah, I mean, so it's all like how you take these things and how you, I hate to keep saying cliches, but, when they say life is 90% what happens, or no, yeah, 10% what happens to you and 90% how you deal with it.
Right.
It's the God's honest truth. I mean, if I let I've had tons of failures, tons of like mistakes where I've lost hundreds of thousands, I've lost millions of dollars that I didn't have to lose. And you sort of, dust yourself off and how did I make that mistake and how do I avoid it in the future?
And pick yourself up again.
Yeah, and I think that's the most important thing. Like, I think if you're resilient, you deal with adversity well, you handle stress, you compartmentalize your stress, you put it where it needs to be, and you move on. I think it's the best.
If you're just starting out,
Mm-hmm.
if you're, someone's just starting out, you would say to also follow all of that advice even more so, right?
Yeah. I preach the gospel of real estate to everybody I meet and that's why my partner, like, I have this lifelong debt of gratitude towards him because he did lend me money to buy my first building. His family lent me $700,000 on a handshake to buy my first commercial property. So, and all I had to do was pinky swear I was going to pay it back. So
and it's good to know that that's still out there in the world.
Tons of that is out there. Tons of that. Our big investor is a West Point grad. He's probably early 70s, and he's just like the nicest, most honest dude ever, and he believes in us. So we can call him and say, hey, we're closing on a building. I know you never saw it, but we need $5 million into the account. Okay. And I'll just do it. And there's no paperwork. There's no, we just all agree that we're going to do what we're going to do, and we do it. And I think there's a real lack of people that stand behind their word, because your word is great when you think everything's going to go well, but it's really when your back's against the wall how you respond to that stuff that really creates character in somebody.
My dad would always say that your word is your bond, really. So whether it's 5,000 or 5 million,
yeah,
right? It's your word and relationships. But I think what you point out too, which is just enlightening and great, is that the fact that there are people still like that out there. Tons. It goes back to what you said about building relationships.
Well, the thing about real estate is, and especially commercial real estate. So if I could give any advice to a young person, I would say real estate, yes. Commercial real estate, double yes. Like residential real estate, you're competing with a lot of people, a lot of mom and pops, a lot of people that maybe save $50,000 or $100,000 and can buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the commercial real estate's different. It weeds out a lot of those, rookie real estate investors or first-time real estate investors. But, and this is what I had to explain to my mom, because my mom, my parents were just like 9-to-5ers, all my brothers and sisters, 9-to-5ers, they just have jobs. When I left college, my dad said, maybe you should go to the military, because he was in the military. Maybe you should go in the military, because, I was crazy. I had like blue hair and earrings. I got my first tattoo when I was 15. So, I was probably a handful. I know I was a handful. So, when you're kind of like brought up that way, and my mom, when I started doing these real estate deals, my mom would babysit my kids in Chicago. She'd come to Chicago and she'd watch my kids while we went to Europe for 3 months, or just because get this windfall of cash from refinancing a building, I spend it. I live my life. Phil saves every friggin' penny, every single dime. He treats like it's his last dime. And I would spend every single, you know, if I had $5 and you're like, can I borrow $5? I'd be like, take it.
Here
That's
you go.
it. Yeah. But my mom's like, man, I just don't know. I saw this mortgage document for a building that you bought for $11 million. Like, how did you do that? And I said, there's no different brain damage that you have to go through to get an $11 million, $111 million property or a $100,000 property. No difference. There's no difference in the mortgage process. As a matter of fact, it's easier to get $111 million than it is to get a $100,000 loan.
Wow.
It's crazy.
But how is that possible?
So I was trying to do a development in downtown St. Pete, 2 high-rise.
Mm-hmm.
And we were purchasing the property for $14 million. The whole, the acquisition of the property, construction, and some soft costs were like $165 million. $165 million. So some people that would be such a daunting thing. They'd be like, let me put a team of people and they're going to tell me like, $165 million, you know what that cost you to run a month? I didn't. I'm like, so I made 3 phone calls and got $165 million committed.
Wow.
Like in 3 phone calls. At the same time, I was trying to get a mortgage on my house, and it was like pulling teeth. You know, I had more documents, more documents. You know, this $165 million. Investors that have tons of money that are out there that would lend money to startups and to people that are doing real estate, they already made their money. They're smart enough to understand whether it's a good deal or whether they're getting snowed. You know, and real estate, I always love real estate because you can touch it, you can drive by it every day and make sure it didn't burn down. Like, it's a tangible asset. And then, you know, I don't even get me started on the tax benefits of owning real estate, but, you know, these I won't call them all scams, but like stock market, all that other stuff, that's just that's kind of like almost like a drug. I mean, I think real estate's a drug too.
Mm-hmm.
I think any passion can become that way, but like the stock market, you're banking on somebody else making the right decisions to make you money. So I think it sort of bucks the whole entrepreneurial spirit, even if you're a day trader and you make hundreds of millions of dollars doing it, you know, being smart enough to see trends. I just still think you're banking on somebody else to do that for you. So with real estate, this is it. You buy it, you own it, you have to work, design it, build it, you know, like your life goes into it. And you know, I'll go back to the struggles that we're having with the city of Tampa. The city of Tampa looks at us like we're 2 guys from Chicago that came down here with all this cash and we're just, you know, screw everybody down here. We're just going to spend our money and we don't care what you say. We have passion in every single project that we own. Every single one. We love them. Like,
you can clearly see it in the building.
That's why we buy them. Phil and I were driving around and he's like, what are you doing lately? You know, he was golfing and I'm doing nothing. I'm like, what are you doing? I was like, no, I was looking at a cigar factory over in Tampa. Me too. So we started negotiating on one to purchase, and then that fell through. And our realtor, who's awesome, she's like, you want me to start sending you guys more stuff? We're like, yeah, sure. She sent us this one. We closed on it in 4.5 weeks. We put in the offer the next day. We came over here with no brokers. We walked through the whole building, and then we got yelled at the next day. The broker's like, I got to walk you through with them. Just pretend that you've never seen any of it. And then we bought it. And then we bought another one, and then we started buying stuff in St. Pete and Bradenton.
And this building, by the way, is located at 1906 North Armenia, and it is the oldest cigar factory, correct?
Yeah, it's the one in the History Museum.
Yes.
Like in their glass, there's a little model of it. It's not white, but you know.
Yeah. And this building was also featured in which movie was it, or the documentary about the ghosts?
Maybe, yeah. I don't know about that. I mean, Gray Ellis, the guy that we bought it from, he's just a 90-year-old dude, just a awesome dude to sit and talk with. He's just knew everything about the building, the history of the cigar factories, and had awesome pictures of this when it was built. You know,
it really is beautiful. If people live in Tampa, I would encourage them definitely to drive by and take a look at the building and all the potential the building has to offer.
It really will be the feather in the cap of West Tampa when we're done with it, because our plans for the outside are amazing. Our tenant base is amazing. Like we have some really cool tenants that are moving in once we get it open. So I'm excited about it.
Well, I was so excited to have you on the podcast. You gave such invaluable advice, Michael. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. In closing, paraphrasing one of my favorite poets, Ralph Waldo Emerson, this is so you, right? Go where there is no path and leave a trail.
That's right.
Awesome.
That's
Thanks
right.
for listening to Trailblazer, everyone. I'm Sarina Fazan.
Thank you.